Hello, Steve White, Trickway89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I thought I'd heard all the news from San Diego Comic-Con, but there's a few things I hadn't heard I want to talk about. First off, the idea that the Next Generation cast had to earn their appearance on Picard. Now, when the show first came up, it was promoted as a continuation of Next Generation, but that's not what Patrick Stewart wanted. He wanted it to be its own series, and he, of course, rejected it initially, but he was convinced. And this is a quote from him from, I think it was EW Entertainment Weekly. I was convinced by what I was told by our wonderful writing team and executive producers what was going to be different about it, and it proved to be even more different than I was told. So he wanted a very different series, he got a very different series, but they felt like after 2 seasons they sort of warranted the Next Generation appearing. Now, I don't understand that. I think they should have been involved the whole time, not centering on them, but they should have been involved the whole time, because that's what the fans wanted, and the show was about them initially. So I don't know why that was what they wanted. But Kurtzman said that they were going to be introduced slowly. They're not just suddenly going to be all assigned to the same ship or anything. He said, the key thing for us was that we did not want to have the crew sort of come out and have cameos. We wanted everybody to have really significant roles, and we wanted to whet appetites a little bit to see them come back together. So at the beginning of the season, the crew is in different places around the galaxy, and slowly we see them come together, but we wanted that to take its time, because these are obviously beloved characters to get to see where they are now. So I'm glad they're getting more than cameos. It will be interesting to sort of see where they are and see them all come together, brought together by something. But it does seem like we're just going to spend most of our time putting together the team, and they're probably only going to be on the screen for like one scene, and then that'll be the end. And we do have this routine with modern Star Trek where it just seems to be about rebuilding or putting things back together, getting things together, and then we never actually have the adventure. It's always the adventure is the idea of what we will do, but we never actually get it. So I'm a bit skeptical of the season. Everyone's saying it's going to be great, but those little things give me a little bit of pause. Now, we also talked about the Enterprise itself. Apparently there's going to be multiple Enterprises. Patrick Stewart said, he was asked if he would sit in the captain's chair again. He said, the captain's chair, the identical chair on the identical ship? I don't think so. I mean, there's more than one Enterprise, and that makes it a little complicated. But we do return to the original Enterprise for a while, and I had completely forgotten that in those days we had carpets on the floor. So it's kind of an advancement that has been made. Now, everyone's assuming he's talking about the D, but which they mentioned in season 2 was recovered from the surface of the planet where it crashed and was now part of the Starfleet Museum. But he doesn't say the D, he says the original. So is he talking about the original Enterprise? Because he's like, identical chair on an identical ship. He doesn't jump right in and say the D. So I'm thinking maybe that we're going to see the original series Enterprise and some other Enterprises. Maybe the E. There may be an Enterprise they're using now because they're not using the Stargazer. They're using another ship which may be the same class, because the bridge set, they seem to be reusing the bridge set from last season. So it's unclear what that is either, but I'd be happy to see any Enterprise again, because any chance to go aboard the Enterprise. Now, there's also the issue of the season as a whole. They said that Terry Matlas was taken with the idea of doing the final Next Generation movie, and that it was really exciting to approach this from a place of who are these characters now, so many years later, the kinds of motives that we have. Obviously, Wrath of Khan is a massive touchstone for anybody who loves Star Trek, but I think the one thing that we love most about Wrath of Khan is the mind games between Kirk and Khan and the one-upsmanship. That has been a real North Star for us for this season. The villain that we've created, we do have a singular villain for this season. I won't say much more than that. She's amazing. So we know they've got a female villain, and I think that's part of the problem with Star Trek, is since Wrath of Khan, the dynamic has always been the Enterprise against a villain. The idea of space exploration and science fiction stories has been abandoned just for this idea of fighting the baddies. It's like villain of the week, and they're all kind of interchangeable, and it's not really Star Trek. And I mean, Wrath Khan made less money than the motion picture, but everyone just ignores that. And the best film for me really was The Voyage Home, because they didn't have a villain. They had a problem to solve, a science fiction idea and a problem to solve, and they worked together to do it. And it wasn't just the villain of the week. So I'm not very optimistic about the series again, because it's just, okay, so we have a female villain, but we still are just doing villain of the week. And where's the science fiction story? Where's the interesting thing? Where's the thing that's going to make us think? Where's the inspiration, the aspiration? It's just fighting a villain, somebody wins, somebody loses. It's just really base and not really Star Trek, and it's more generic science fiction, not even generic science fiction, it's just not impressed. So I'm very let down about that, because they kind of did that with last season, but they did seem to have different elements in play, and the last season of Discovery, they didn't have a villain, and it was very motion picture-like, and I really liked it. And what else was there? Oh, of course, 7 of 9 is now a first officer aboard the ship that they're on. She's not the captain of the Stargazer. She's first officer on the ship that they're on now. There's talk of her having her own series, but no one knows that's going to happen. There was talk of 2 different series, and we know they've been talking about Section 31 forever, but no one really wants it, and Paramount hasn't greenlit it. There's also talk of Starfleet Academy, but Paramount has acknowledged that it is shifting its strategy, because the financial situation in America has sort of warranted it, and they can't just keep on making whatever they want. They need to sort of really strategize and be very clear about what they're doing. And 5 series of Star Trek or 50 episodes a year may not be happening, or may not continue to happen. So it's really unclear what they're going to do in the future. I'm not sure even what's coming up next. They seem to be having a little bit of a break before they go into the next series. But someone got up actually and asked about having a deaf crew member. And as much as I'm sure people might want to pander to that, the reality is it doesn't fit in with Star Trek. In the 25th century or the 31st century, there won't be deaf people. Now, the idea of an alien species that doesn't hear and communicates in other means, that would be interesting, and that would be an interesting character for a deaf person to play. But the idea of just a deaf crew person makes about as much sense as the crew person in the wheelchair on Discovery, which was a ridiculous pandering to disabled people wanting to have someone on the show, even though it doesn't make any sense in the context of the show. There would be no people in wheelchairs in the 25th century, 24th century, or the 31st century, wherever they are, if it's Discovery or Picard. So I always find those sort of questions cringe. I think that's it, really. Gates McFadden talked about having her best role for Crusher in a season, and the idea that maybe they'll do a 7 of 9 series came up. And of course, 7 is in Starfleet again, obviously being in First Officer, so we're going to see some changes of her character. They talked about a movie, but, that was just wishful thinking. Kurtzman talked about the 2 series, but didn't really go into any real detail about anything. He just referred to 2 series being developed, but that can be anything from them just putting together basic, premises, as opposed to actually paying for people to write scripts and actual pre-production and have something being greenlit with a production order. I don't think he has that yet with anything else. Even though Picard's finished, they've only just finished Picard, so they might be taking a break to think about where they want to go next. They talked about Chris Pine, because he was asked in his panel if he knew anything about the new Star Trek 4. He said no. Same thing as before. He hadn't seen anything, didn't know anything other than the news. But Variety has stated that he's actually getting $13 million for Star Trek. So, yeah. 4 years ago when Paramount was in worse financial shape, a different sequel project with different screenwriter, blah, blah, blah. Fizzled, but salary negotiations broke down with Pine. But it's reported that he signed on $13 million for the Star Trek sequel. So I'm not sure if they're talking about when they were negotiating for the last film or this film, because he may have given his number and they may at least know that, and they haven't really negotiated further. But fortunately, it doesn't sound like Chris Hemsworth's going to be in the film, which is going to save the film about $20 million, because that's how much he gets paid. And I think that's it for the news. That's everything. So there's still talk of 2 more series, but nothing seems to be sorted. We're going to get multiple Enterprises. I think we're going to get the original series Enterprise and some other Enterprises, but everyone assumes it's the D because it's, you know, Picard and it's next generation era. But so far as I know, they're both in the museum. I think they might have a Constitution class refitted or refurbished as the Enterprise for a museum piece, but that's in various fan fictions and novels and stuff, I think. And yeah, I think that's it. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I feel okay about Picard Season 3, but the whole Khan level villain, the whole, you know, goodies versus baddies, basic villain of the week thing is not impressing me. But yeah, we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see what we get. Thanks. Bye.